So my my phone rang the other day, and I knew what it was going to be before I answered. That concerned voice. Hey, just checking in. You doing okay? I love the people who call like that. I really do. But after I talked a bit and hung up, I just stood there thinking, in retirement, my quiet life makes other people nervous. And it's strange because their worry doesn't always feel like comfort. Occasionally, it feels like I'm being evaluated, maybe even judged. So let me say this right up front. I'm okay. This isn't a crisis story. It's just something I've noticed. People see you living a quiet life and they assume that it must be lonely. But from the inside, where I see it, it doesn't feel empty. It feels settled. And that's what I want to talk about, what quiet looks like from the inside when you're not trying to prove anything to anyone anymore. So here's the part that can be kind of hard to explain. For some people, quiet feels like a void, an emptiness. For me, quiet is where my mind finally has room to move around. I'm not staring at the wall waiting for someone to rescue me. I'll be quietly folding laundry and thinking through something I've been carrying around for weeks. Or I can be in my office or out in the garage working on a project, tinkering with something. Not because I'm just trying to keep busy, but because it's genuinely satisfying. Sometimes I'll read for an hour or two and feel more refreshed than if I'd gone out and tried to be social just to check a box. I'm not anti people. I love my family, my sisters, my kids. I enjoy a good conversation, but I've noticed two things about myself. First, when things get quiet, I don't experience it as boredom. My brain treats quiet like opportunity, a chance to process and to think without interruption, without anybody needing something from me. And the second thing is socializing can be mentally expensive for me. Not because I don't like people, I do, but to be honest, it's because I have to quiet down my inner world, what's running around in my head, so that I can keep track of someone else's thoughts, the conversation. It may sound a little selfish, but it's being honest. And and retirement has made that clearer because when the pressure to perform drops, when you're not, having a work day where you have to be, on all day, you start to learn what actually restores you. So when people worried about me, part of me wants to say, "Hey, I appreciate the love, I really do, but I'm not sitting here sad. I'm sitting here alive in my own head and grateful for the peace and quiet." I'm not trying to fit myself into somebody else's picture of what retirement is supposed to look like. I'm trying to be true to who I actually am. Now, let me clear something up because uh, people might assume that this is one of those stories where, oh, I was a lonely kid and I just stayed that way when I grew up. That's not me. In school, I was popular, I was active. In high school, I was involved in drama and band, and I was a decent athlete too. So, no, my childhood wasn't me, cowering in a corner somewhere by myself. But here's what was true even back then. I liked people very much, and I also liked my own space. I loved reading. I enjoyed playing games you could play quietly, solitary board games, things you could get lost in your head in. And then as a young adult, I was never one for going out to bars after work or doing the whole after hours social thing. And then my wife and I got married young, shortly after high school. We stepped into married life while a lot of our friends were still single. Different rhythms, different weekends, different priorities. You don't always lose friends with something dramatic. Sometimes you lose them with timing. Friendships just start to kind of thin out, kind of fade away as your priorities change. And if you're already that kind of person who's content at home, reading, building something, Being with your spouse, that thinning out of your friendships can happen faster than you expect. Not tragic, just true. So when retirement comes and the workplace connections fade, some people feel panic. For me, it was more like clarity, more like a relief. I thought, oh man, this is great. This is who I've been after hours for a long time. So a quiet retirement doesn't automatically mean a small retirement. Some of the best moments I've had in this season aren't loud at all. They're ordinary. A good book that opens my thinking, a small project with my hands in the garage, or a project with my mind on the computer. And then, of course, the sweetest ones for me are the simple moments with one of my grandkids. Not the big expensive outings necessarily, just being present. Because kids don't need grandpa to be impressive. They need him to be steady. They need him to be present. And that's part of why I'm doing this channel with these videos. I want to leave something behind that's honest for my grandkids. In case one of them watches one of these someday, I want them to get a clearer picture of who I am. Oprah was okay in retirement. Not perfect, not a cartoon character, but okay. I found a kind of peace that fits me, and for me, faith is part of that. God meets me in the quiet and in a way that feels steady, not dramatic. And so, yeah, people worry about me sometimes, and I get it. But they're wrong to jump to the conclusion that they assume the quiet means lonely. Sometimes quiet just means a person has stopped performing and started living at their own volume. So I'm not hiding, I'm not broken. I'm learning what's true about me, and I'm grateful for this season. If any of this sounds familiar, I'd genuinely love to hear about, your story in the comments. What does quiet look like for you these days? And if you want to see more of these, please consider hitting the subscribe button. So, anyways, see you next time. This is Opa.